on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video, and I kind of want to just touch on two topics today. Small topics. One thing I've been thinking about for a few days. The other is news that just broke about a half hour ago regarding the NFL and the season, as I try to remain optimistic. Of course, this morning, the news came out that the NFL canceled the Hall of Fame game and the Hall of Fame induction ceremony, which takes place every year in August. And it's kind of the start of the football year. That's when you start to get into it. It's the first game, and the NFL pushed that back till 2021. So there will be a double induction ceremony in 2020 and 2021, and they canceled the game, which was supposed to take place on August 6th. And everybody got up in an uproar, and they got nervous. Is the NFL going to cancel the season? And they still might. I'm not trying to discount what's going on in the world right now, but you look around, you see baseball, basketball trying to start things up, and we'll see if the NFL, albeit a contact sport, I could understand why some people feel like it is less likely to return than the other sports, but I do think if the other sports return, the NFL is going to find a way to play, or at least to start the season, and who knows what could happen, from within it. Of course, some concerns. There's been players that have come out and talked about it. I've a couple of players that I saw on Twitter saying that they wouldn't want to play in this climate unless they felt completely healthy, and it'll be interesting to see, because I don't think the NFL is going to be able to guarantee that, how they will be able to navigate that. I'm sure there will be players, though, on the depth chart that will want to step in and get an opportunity. And that is where depth will come into play. And like I said yesterday, I think the team doctors are going to have a lot to do if we have a season with the New York Giants and all other, the other 31 teams' success in this year. But they came out today, the commissioner came out and said that all training camps, as of now, will be starting on time. They reiterated that on July 28th. So the New York Giants will be suiting up with, in about a month. We'll see them at training camp unless there are changes. But as of now, I'm just reporting what I'm being told. And it looks as if the New York Giants will be in training camp July 28th. It looks like Major League Baseball will be starting July 24th. And it looks like the NBA will be starting right around the same time, I think the end of July. So that's good news on that front if you're somebody that's, hoping to see football this year. And, we'll have to wait and see, how the players' health comes into play. The other thing that I really wanted to touch on, it's just something that I was thinking about. It's not a current event. Is Markus Golden. Markus Golden, to me, it's been an enigma this offseason as to why he hasn't gotten a job. And I'm not saying he's a great player. I was outspoken for the New York Giants not bringing him back. If you watch my channel, you go all the way back to week 14, 15. I said I don't think the New York Giants should bring him back for the simple reason that I don't think he's going to fit the scheme of the new defensive coordinator. Of course, I was anticipating they would move on from James Bettcher, and he's not the greatest all-around outside linebacker, right? He struggles in coverage. He's not great against the run. He's known as a pure pass rusher, and a lot of people will point to the fact that he got some coverage sacks last year, which is pretty funny because the New York Giants couldn't cover anybody. But yes, when you go back and look at the highlights, there were certainly times where he was not on block, things like that. But regardless, Markus Golden was the first New York Giant since 2014 to record double-digit sacks, and he has a track record. Of course, he was injured all of, I think, 2017, and he didn't play so well the year before he came to the New York Giants in 18, but people said he didn't fit the scheme. He came in, he fit Bettcher's scheme, and he played very well, where he had 10 sacks and led the team. The other stat that jumped off the chart when I looked at it, I was shocked at this. Markus Golden, ranking 15th or tied for 15th in the league in sacks in the entire NFL, ranked 6th in quarterback hits with 27. The leader was Shaq Barrett with 37, but he was way up there, 6th in the entire league. And you would think for a player coming off a year in which Golden had. Now, I know that, people look at the analytics, he had a 60 PFF grade, doesn't rank so well against the run. But in a league, starving for good edge rushers, you would think a team would have taken a flyer on him, and they still might. The deadline is July 22nd, and we're about 28 days away or so until we know if Markus Golden will be back with the New York Giants this season for what I think it has to be one of the biggest bargains in the league. $4.5 million. I mean, that's what we're paying Cam Fleming, who's a backup swing tackle. And we need it. We know that the New York Giants need as much depth as they could get specifically at that edge rusher position to throw as many different looks that they can at opposing offenses. Now, in terms of the snap differential, that will be interesting to see how the New York Giants break that down. They brought in Kyler Fackrell. I think due in large part to the fact that they thought that he would fit this scheme well. He played with Patrick Graham. However, at the time that they signed Fackrell, they probably never thought that they'd be able to bring Markus Golden back for $4.5 million, which very well may be the case as it's approaching that deadline. So maybe they would have never brought in Fackrell to begin with if they knew that they could get Golden back for that price, even though Golden may not fit this scheme as well as Fackrell would, being, like I said, he played for Graham. Obviously, you still have young stars with O'Shane Ximines and Lorenzo Carter trying to break out this year. And I am not the hugest Markus Golden fan, but regardless, the guy is still a productive NFL player and is certainly worth more than $4.5 million. I think the New York Giants would be getting an absolute steal, but I still question as to why a team has not given him a contract yet, even if it's $5 or $6 million. It's more than 4.5. You don't have to make that big of a commitment to a guy that's proven. The guy's got 22.5 combined sacks the last 2 years he played a full season. He's proven to be a productive player in that area of getting after the quarterback over a 2-year stretch. So why haven't they? And the only reasonable conclusion I could really come up with, well, two reasonable conclusions, is he doesn't fit as many schemes as other players. You look at a guy like Robert Quinn, for example, and a guy that I was outspoken for that I thought the New York Giants should look at on a cost-effective deal, and the Bears overspent. I think they spent $70 million to bring in Quinn on a 4 or 5 year deal. They massively overpaid whatever it was. But you look at a guy like him. He had 40 combined quarterback hits from 2015 to 2018 over a 4-year stretch. And of course, he was great before that. He was one of the best edge rushers in the sport, at the beginning of his career. But before last year with the Dallas Cowboys, he was pedestrian. 40 quarterback hits over a 4-year stretch in which he had some injury-plagued seasons, or a 5-year stretch, I think it was. He had some injury-plagued seasons. He missed a half season, I think, at 15 and 16. But the reason why I think he was more valuable on the open market is because he fits more systems, right? Because he's a 4-3 defensive end, and maybe he's more, maybe he could fit more schemes than that of Markus Golden, or at least that's the thought process. The other thing that makes sense to me, and it's why maybe him and Clowney have not been signed yet, is the injury history. Markus Golden has had an extensive injury history. It's why the New York Giants were able to bring him in last year on about a $3 million contract. And the fact that, everything that's going on in the world right now, it makes it harder to evaluate players with physicals. And maybe teams are not willing to commit to a player like Markus Golden without being able to give him a physical. Of course, he was a New York Giant last year, and the New York Giants, I guess, have the medical records, and that is probably why they tendered him. But I think the New York Giants will be getting an absolute steal if they're able to bring Markus Golden back on $4.5 million. Now, in terms of how big of an impact he'll make, that remains to be seen. But I think he's somebody that could definitely help us. We need as much help as we could get in terms of getting after the quarterback. I think our defensive line is pretty strong. I think our secondary has the potential to be pretty strong. They're still young and underdeveloped, and we have to wait and see what we have. But they're definitely emerging and getting better. But Markus Golden for the 2020 football team, make no mistake about it, would definitely help. And he was one of the leaders of that defense last year. What will be interesting to me, though, will be the snap count disparity if he is back. Will he cut into the snaps of players like O'Shane Ximines, Lorenzo Carter, and Kyler Fackrell? Fackrell doesn't really matter that much. He's on a 1-year deal to begin with, and I think the New York Giants initially brought him in to be Golden's replacement. Fackrell measures out better in coverage. He's probably a better all-around player, but you could probably argue that Golden may be better at getting after the quarterback, although Fackrell did have 10.5 sacks one season. But it'll be very interesting to see if Golden is back, how he cuts into the snap counts of those 3 players and how the New York Giants look to utilize this defense. I think you're going to see a lot of 3 safety sets. I think you're going to see a lot of the DBs on the field. So I don't expect Markus Golden to get nearly as many snaps as he did last year. I think the New York Giants will look to, be better in coverage by having more players out there in the secondary in certain packages. Where Golden, I think, will be on the field will be second and long and third and long situations, obvious passing down situations where you need that guy off the edge who's proven he could get after the quarterback. And if we were to bring Markus Golden back, as sad as it may sound, he's more proven than anybody else on this roster. Of course, we're hoping that Ximines takes a big step forward. The same could be said for Lorenzo Carter, and we hope that Fackrell has a resurgent season. But getting Markus Golden back would do wonders for this New York Giants defense in terms of depth. And I think a lot of Giants fans would be very happy at that $4.5 million price tag. The question is, will somebody else bite? And I still am leaning that it's at least a 50-50 proposition that somebody else will. But maybe because of the climate and everything that's going on in the world right now, maybe that won't be the case. Maybe the Giants will get him back at $4.5 million, and we're going to have to wait and see, as we're only about 3 weeks away until we find out if Markus Golden will be returning with the New York Giants. And, of course, we're about 3 or 4 weeks away as to finding out whether or not the New York Giants and the NFL will be starting training camps on time, which is scheduled to be July 28th. And hopefully that's the case, because I, as a New York Giants fan and just sports fan in general, want to see sports get back into the mold. But like I've said in a lot of my other previous videos, the most important thing is the players' health. And we want to make sure that these guys are healthy and out on the football field and feel confident in that, in that aspect. Now, of course, you're not going to be able to guarantee, because you can't predict the future. You cannot guarantee that you'll be able to maintain the player's safety. But what the NFL could try to do is try to make it as safe as possible for these players to feel as comfortable as they possibly can. But we'll have to wait and see how it all plays out. As always, guys, if you like what you watch, please subscribe, drop a comment, maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.